Hello, everybody. Happy New Year, and welcome to the second episode of the Kickball podcast. I'm actually amazed that we managed to get a second episode out.
We're back.
It only took a
We
month.
are. It only took a month.
Back at it again.
We are indeed back. It is 2021. So today we are going to talk New Year's resolutions for our favorite teams. Today is the very day that Francisco Lindor got traded to the Mets. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and some other off-season baseball stuff too. But we are going to start with a discussion of America's many, many national teams. See, I got this beautiful U.S. women's national soccer team jersey for Christmas, and it actually got me thinking, is there a better American national team than the women's soccer team? I don't think there is, but I wanted to discuss this with the guys. What single national team in any sport do we think is the single best American team?
So when I think of what would qualify as the best, I would think consistency, performance on the field, the consistency in terms of fan engagement, players wanting to be a part of the team consistently. I'm adding basketball a little bit. And then
I was going to talk about that too. I was going to take them on for that. So
yeah. And I think those three are kind of the main things. And it's hard to not say women's soccer excels at all three of those.
Yeah.
I would give an honorable mention to both men's and women's swim and diving, women's gymnastics. It's hard to not acknowledge basketball for performance, but I think it's kind of unfair.
See, the thing for me, I was thinking about this is, so my two, if I had to bring it down to two, I would say women's soccer and basketball. And the only reason I don't include the Olympic sports is because I don't really think of the Olympic team as a team in the same way that basketball and soccer,
individual sports.
It's so hard. It's hard to see it as a team in the same way that soccer or basketball is. I really see the Olympic team as more of a collection of these really talented individuals.
I mean, if we're talking purely in terms of talent, it's got to be men's basketball, though. The Olympic team is just head and shoulders above every other Olympic basketball team out there. It doesn't even come close. I mean, we have LeBron James and James Harden
when he plays.
Any American basketball player you can think of, when you have all those guys on the same team, it's OP. You're going to win.
Except here's the thing. You don't always have all those guys on the same team. Because it seems to me every year there's an Olympics or every year there's a FIBA World Championships, there's always some headline of, oh, this player's sitting out. This player doesn't want to play. We just see every time there's a national competition, you see NBA players just not want to play for the national team.
Yeah. How do you think it would change if there was a more worldwide perception that it required the best players to win gold for basketball?
I think more NBA players would play. I think you brought this up a few days ago when we were talking about this before we recorded the show, Ryan.
Yeah.
Where, what's the point of playing and potentially injuring yourself when none of the games are going to be competitive?
Mm-hmm. Except for the Spain game.
Yeah.
And maybe the China game.
So I looked up the competitive records, women's soccer and USA, the men's basketball team. So the women's soccer team, they've qualified for every major tournament in history, which admittedly is not many because women's soccer really started becoming an respected international sport in the 1980s. The first World Cup was in the 1990s. So they've never finished outside the top three in a World Cup. They've won it 4 times. They were second place once, and the other 3 times they got third. And the worst ever finish they had at a major tournament, either a World Cup or Olympics, was 5th at the 2016 Olympics. And they've got 4 gold medals and 1 silver medal there too. Men's basketball, also very good. They have 15 Olympic gold medals, 1 silver, 2 bronzes. They've got 5 FIBA World Championship titles. They've 3 times second place, 4 times third. But they have finished outside the top 3 multiple times, 6 times. And admittedly, 4 of those times they weren't using NBA players, because this was like back in the 50s when they didn't for whatever reason.
Before the Dream Team.
Yeah, pre-Dream Team. But there were 2 times, including 2019, when they finished 7th, when the U.S. basketball team finished outside the top 3 at a FIBA tournament.
I'm pretty sure that team was almost G Leaguers and undrafted free agents.
Yeah, I don't think I even remember there being a FIBA World Championship in 2019.
Clearly, we've only gone up since the 70s.
I remember looking up when I got home. There was like an international competition for the Americas that was taking place in Indianapolis, I believe. And I looked up the U.S. team in the competition. I was only able to recognize one name, and it's former Duke undrafted forward Alex Poitras. No, that's not his name. I don't remember what his name is.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that really does not help basketball's case when you don't have the best players playing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think we are largely in agreement. U.S. women's national soccer team, best team that best national team that America has.
It's definitely like the highest level of competition. It's definitely a higher level of competition than we see in Olympic basketball. But I mean, if we're including like competitiveness, like all the factors Ryan just mentioned, then we'd probably say women's. But if we're talking like purely like best team in comparison to everyone else, it's basketball.
Like, no doubt, like
far and away the best basketball nation on the planet.
Which you would hope, considering that basketball is an American sport.
Yeah, so it's
one of the ones invented here.
It really depends on how you frame the question.
Yeah, I remember the guy's name was Emil Jefferson. He currently plays for Galatasaray.
Hey, shout out!
Which is in the Turkish league.
I mean, I will say, shout out to European leagues. They've, I feel like, really stepped up their game recently.
Shout out to former Gonzaga forward Jonathan Williams for being on Galatasaray as well.
Hey. Love our former Bulldogs. So yeah, before we do wrap this up and start talking about baseball, I do want to say shout out to the U.S. Olympic team. They are always very good, always very competitive. We just did not include them in this conversation because they aren't as cohesive of a team as some of the other national teams.
Yeah, and when I was thinking swimming,
team doing?
Yeah, how's our what?
How's the U.S. bobsled team doing? Do we have a U.S. bobsled team?
Pretty sure we do.
I would assume they work out in Colorado.
Yeah, probably.
Where everybody seems to be working out.
Yeah. I mean, this would obviously be a much more interesting discussion, I'm now thinking, if we'd actually had an Olympics last year like we were supposed to.
Yeah, I mean, we can say we're previewing the Tokyo a couple months early.
But yeah.
I don't think we even mentioned the 2017 USA WBC team that won it all.
Yeah.
I mean, that was
that's similar to basketball where but for different reasons, the best players don't play just because of how poorly timed it is with the regular season.
Yeah, with spring training and everything, like baseball is just as much culprit of lack of participation than basketball is. But that year was like considered like the most talented USA team, like any like American baseball player that you could have thought of. Yeah, was on that team, with the exception of like Mike Trout and Bryce Harper.
Yeah. I think as the years go on, at least on the hitting side, more of the best players will be inclined to play, just because of how much attention it has been receiving.
Yeah.
But pitching, it's really hard to justify getting ready a month or two earlier to try and pitch in something that is so much more high risk.
And pitchers need all 6 weeks of those spring training. So like you can't force a guy like Clayton Kershaw to like throw 3 innings in a preseason spring training game against whoever and then expect to go throw a 6-inning shutout against Team Japan or Team South Korea or it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I think the scheduling is really unfortunate for the WBC.
Same for hockey with the Winter Olympics during the regular season.
Yeah, and I mean they always seem to have this argument about whether to allow NHL players to go too. So.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of NHL owners are we don't want our players getting hurt. That's not on our dime.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, since we mentioned hockey, before hockey people yell at us in the comments, I'm aware that the World Juniors just happened. I'm aware that the USA won. Take that, Canada. Okay, we've mentioned hockey. Let's move on.
All right.
Oh,
All
See,
right.
I was gonna transition us nice and smoothly because we were talking about the WBC. I was like, let's talk more baseball, but then we got distracted by hockey. So let's talk
I
baseball.
somehow transitioned something into hockey.
Yeah,
We're all about that hockey, kids.
let's talk baseball. So the Francisco Lindor trade to
Mhm.
the Mets happened today, and that's
Yes.
all I know. So Ryan and Henry, you guys
Yeah.
take it away.
I'll break down the trade for y'all. So
Okay.
yeah. So the New York Mets get Francisco Lindor and Carlos Carrasco. In exchange, going to Cleveland is shortstop Andres Jimenez and Ahmed Rosario, pitching prospect Josh Wolf, and outfielder Isaiah Green. So yeah, pretty big trade. It's been a very trade-heavy offseason. Not a whole lot of big signings outside of James McCann, also going to the Mets from a few weeks
Right,
ago. So pretty slow offseason so far, but we've had some pretty big trades here and there.
Yeah, and we're going to be getting into big trades later on. But for Lindor, Carlos Carrasco, like the situation heading to the Mets, Lindor's on his last year of his deal, but it looks like the Mets are really interested in re-signing him long term, similar to a Mookie Betts to Dodger situation, where you take a guy in the last year of his deal, and then a team that is more willing to re-sign him will have the opportunity to have more extensive talks. So that's something. The Mets are at least a top 3 team in the NL. Padres and Dodgers probably above them. The Braves are still going to be competitive. The NL Central looks like a dumpster fire. We're going to get into the Cubs later.
Yeah.
I think the Mets are definitely one big trade away from being in the same class as the Dodgers and the Padres. They have some defensive issues they need to clean up. You got Dominic Smith in left field, JD Davis at third base. So I mean, the offense is there. You got guys like Conforto, Brandon Nimmo, Pete Alonso, who didn't have a great year in 2020, but nonetheless, if you add a guy like George Springer to that lineup, they're going to be nasty.
And I mean, like you could never count out a team that has Jake DeGrom and Noah Syndergaard in the same rotation.
And
so you've got DeGrom.
Oh, right,
and
Marcus Stroman.
And now Carlos Carrasco. You
that's
David Peterson and Steven Matz, Seth Lugo as pitchers. You got Edwin Diaz and Dylan Betances, Miguel Castro manning the bullpen. Interesting for the Mets, Syndergaard and Stroman are each on the last year of their deals. Carrasco has 2 years left. DeGrom is 4. So I still would not be surprised if the Mets went for more starting pitching that maybe had more years of control, a.k.a. Trevor Bauer.
Oh, right. Yeah, because he's a free agent.
Because the rotation is going to be strong, but if they don't think they can re-sign both Stroman and Syndergaard, or maybe just only one of them, they're going to want to try and find more stability there long term.
Yeah, I mean, they look really good though now with that lineup. So
and then the Indians have traded essentially almost their entire team except for Shane Bieber and Jose Ramirez in 18 months.
Yeah.
They still have one of the best player development systems in baseball, especially in their pitching, and they have a very deep farm, but it's not top heavy at all. So with the team they have, they're still relatively competitive, but it's going to be very hard to try and justify that they're going to be able to find anything that can actually take them over the top if they couldn't do it in 2016.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely at a point in time where they're realizing, okay, the White Sox they're in win now mode, so they're probably going to be the top of that AL Central for a few years to come. And they got some depth, they got some trade chips to work with. Plenty of shortstops in the minor leagues. Obviously, you got Jimenez and Rosario now at the big league level, and then you got guys like Owen Miller and Freeman and all those guys down in the minor leagues. So, and then obviously all those pitching prospects: Josh Wolf, Ethan Hankes, first-round pick; Daniel Espino, a first-round pick; Tanner Burns, first or second-round pick.
He was a first,
yeah, first-round pick, yeah. So I mean, great player development system, especially for pitching.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that the Indians struggled with was just outfield across the board, and they picked up Isaiah Green, who's still a few years away, but they've been linking him to Michael Brantley forever, a former Indian, so they must be inspired by something like that. He could be a top of the order hitter who can just provide a high on base, nothing outlandish, but it's consistency, and I think that's one thing that they've been lacking offensively.
Yeah, I think Isaiah Green does the better field tool. I think he's gonna be faster. Brantley's more of a corner guy, but you could see Isaiah Green be a really rangy center fielder. But yeah, nice outfield prospect. Doesn't get a whole lot of attention. So yeah, I mean, I guess the Indians were giving up, or should I say, the Cleveland baseball team are giving up a lot in Francisco Lindor, Carlos Carrasco. But they're definitely getting some pieces to work with for the future. So yeah.
Yeah. I have to
Nice.
add, Isaiah Green was the 69th pick of the draft in 2020.
Nice.
I'm just saying that he's a second round pick, so like I thought that was important. I don't know why you're all laughing.
Yeah, why are you laughing, Eric?
No reason. I was just thinking about how good the Padres are going to be.
Yeah, speaking of
That's
nice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The Padres. They
Yeah.
they made
So-
some moves.
They traded for a couple people.
Yeah, so it all started off with Blake Snell. My family got really mad at me because I was when the Blake Snell trade happened, we were in the middle of playing a game, and I was like simultaneously texting like 4 different people about the trade. It was a really big deal. Yeah, Farron was one of them. So yeah, it's a really big deal. Blake Snell.
Wait, Farron, didn't you get a Snell Rays jersey for Christmas this year?
Yeah,
Yes,
it was from me.
It's
I got that Blake
as
Snell
fitting as my Dodgers 2017 NLCS champions shirt that also is here with me.
Oh man.
So
That-
I think I just need a trend of World Series losing TV shirts.
Yeah, it was a World Series 2020 Rays shirt.
Yeah,
Oh,
it has
man.
the World Series logo on it too. I think it's perfectly fitting. So
Perfect.
I should find a Dodgers 2018 one. That might be good. I don't know. Maybe I find like a Rockies 2007 NLCS one.
Matt Holliday still didn't touch home
I was
plate.
gonna say, maybe not
Speaking
that
of
one.
Padres,
Yeah, maybe not that one in San Diego.
I mean, I could have brought my Zach Greinke Dodgers jersey to San Diego.
Yeah,
They
that
don't
one
like him
goes
here
over well.
either.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So trade breakdown. Obviously, San Diego Padres are getting Blake Snell, former Cy Young Award winner. And in exchange for Blake Snell, the Tampa Bay Rays are getting top pitching prospect Luis Patino amongst Francisco Mejia, catching utility guy, Blake Hunt, minor league catcher, and Cole Wilcox, who is a 3rd round pick in the 2020 draft out of Georgia.
Third round
right-handed
pick
pitcher.
should come with a giant asterisk because he still got signed for $3 million.
Yeah, major overslot guy, had some signability questions.
Yeah, he was projected top 20 pick. So
he was nasty.
there's concern about him being a reliever, which I don't think the Rays care, because I think if the Rays don't pitch guys more than 5 innings anyway.
Yeah, right.
I think at his ceiling, at his most, he could be a mid-rotation starter. Like,
Yeah.
Knowing the Rays, they'll probably turn him into a shortstop.
Yeah,
They do weird stuff down there.
just make him into a Jake Cronenworth.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, but I honestly think Cole Wilcox should close. Like not now, but I think in 2023, I think he could be like one of their
I could
stoppers.
see that.
Yeah.
He has a really low release point, which is kind of deceptive. That's what the Rays like. There's always the graphs that show like they have a guy who could throw from here, 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 here,
Yeah.
here, here,
yeah.
here.
Patino is kind of the same way. I mean, obviously, it's very electric stuff, fastball slider. He really struggled with his command and his walk count this past year.
Yeah, he really did.
He's pitching primarily out of the bullpen for the Padres when he got called up from the alternate site.
Yeah.
But I mean, with the Rays player development system, there's no doubt in my mind that this guy is going to be a number 2, number 3 starter for the Rays. So I would honestly feel confident that you could slate him right in that rotation in 2021, along with Tyler Glasnow and Ryan Yarbrough. So yeah, he'll need a little bit of development, but I think the Rays will have all in them to get the best out of him.
I would honestly be surprised if Patino didn't see major league innings this season.
Yeah, I think he will see a lot. I would not be surprised if they want to refine him in AAA to start.
Yeah, that was sort of what I was thinking they would do.
And I also wouldn't be surprised if come playoff time, he has an innings limit.
Yeah.
Because he's younger than us. I just aged.
Love that.
Dude, a lot of players
love
are
that.
younger than me.
He's either just about to turn 21 or just turned 21.
Oui.
So he's also going to have like, also just for the sake of like, the team control, Rays want to try and like maximize guys. They're going to probably want to hold on him to the minors as long as they think they can possibly do it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the 2 pitching trades.
And then there's Francisco Mejia.
Oh yeah, Francisco Mejia. Yeah.
Man, what a puzzle!
In 17 games in 2020, he had a .077 batting average and a -12 WRC plus, weighted runs created plus. And just to put this in perspective, league average WRCC plus is 100, not -100, 100, and his is -12. Like, he just had an awful year.
Here's the thing. That's the thing. I don't know if he's such a puzzle to me because he had a terrible year. But last year, I think
they should put into perspective. Austin Hedges doubled his batting average.
Yeah,
with the Padres.
Last year, not this past season, the season before. The last time we had a full
19?
season. Yeah, 19.
Yeah.
For Francisco Mejia was decent.
He was about a league average hitter.
He was not terrible.
He was barely league average.
Yeah. The one thing that's really
was he barely league average?
He was below league average on OPS plus. He was above league average on WRC plus.
Okay.
Yeah,
but like for a catcher, that's still probably top 10 catcher.
Yeah.
Because most catchers are below.
The only reason he's really still a catcher is because his arm.
Yeah. If you're struggling at the plate, they're going to try and want to keep you a catcher. Yeah, because if they move you to left field, there's more pressure on the bat.
Right. I mean, he could definitely be a utility guy for the Rays. You can put him at third base, left field. Obviously, he's going to need to hit to find his way in the lineup, especially now that the Rays have more catching options, which is something they couldn't say last year.
Yeah. Zunino is back. He is good.
He is good.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say another defensive catcher, another catcher who's better defending than he is hitting.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, definitely a lot of defensive first catchers that the Rays have with Zunino, Ronaldo Hernandez,
Humberto Hernandez, who they acquired from the Rangers in the Nate Lowe trade. Nate Lowe. Sorry, wrong brother.
Low, just like the store.
Yep. Yeah. And then I'll move on to the Cubs.
Yeah, Cubs.
They got 4 of their top 20 prospects, but none in the top 10. Owen Casey, Reginald Preciado, Yeson Rosario. Is that
Yeson Santana?
Yeson Santana, and then who is their other one?
Ismael Mena.
And then Davies. The Padres got Victor Caratini and Darvish. Oh yeah, Zach Davies.
Also Zach Davies.
Zach Davies is probably gonna have like a 7 ERA because he doesn't have the best defense on the left side anymore.
Right.
Yeah, this one's definitely a bit of a more questionable trade, especially the fact that the Cubs didn't get a single top 10 prospect from the Padres, given that Darvish was a Cy Young finalist this year.
Yeah. Only one of the 4 prospects has professional baseball experience. And that is a question mark that a lot of people had. It looks like they're ready to form a rebuild, and they chose prospects that fit more of a timeline that they see, which might be in a few years.
Mm-hmm.
And then Zach Davies is going to try and fit more of the, hey, let's stay competitive while we still have Anthony Rizzo, Javier Baez, and Chris Bryant together, because that's not going to last.
Yep.
This is very much a sign that the Cubs are going to enter into a rebuild sooner rather than later, because realistically, you're not going to keep the majority of Baez, Bryant, Rizzo, all those free agents after 2021. Wilson Contreras, a free agent after 2022. So yeah, they didn't get Luis Campusano. They didn't get Ryan Weathers, but they got a good crop of some like international signees.
Yeah.
Reginald Preciado.
Yeah. We've heard a lot of things about Preciado because they're just the connections we had with the alternate site. He was a late addition there, and he apparently just looks so much older than he is. Like he's 6'4", 185 as a shortstop. He might move to third or the outfield, but his bat is really loud. Yeah. Casey was the 2nd round pick in 2020, and then the 2 younger guys have more been treated as like contact hitters, and they have more hitting tools that look presentable in the future as contact guys than true power guys.
Yeah. The thing that really stood about me to Preciado is when USD volunteer assistant coach Matt Burgandy had this to say about him. He said, this is when Preciado was at the alternate site for the Padres. Is that when Machado gets too old, that Preciado will take over for him at third base?
No longer. He looks like he's going to take former USD Chris Bryant's job.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, switch hitter, 6'4", so he probably won't stick at shortstop. Probably stay at third base for the long term. But yeah, I mean, you got to think that out of these 4 guys, 2 of them, at least 1 or 2 of them, have to pan out because I mean, these guys have some good upside.
And it's
but obviously
now,
they're a ways away from being giving any big league impact.
It's completely up to player development now because they chose guys who maybe are lower ranked, maybe were a little bit more expendable because of pure being unproven. So these are going to be more like, this is now your chance. We don't have much of a report on these guys. You have to just trust that these guys fit your model.
Yeah.
And speaking of that for the Cubs, we see teams selling bigger names. Cubs with Darvish, Indians / Spiders / Rocks with Lindor. And then we have Blake Snell with the Rays. Like, I have a little bit more faith in the Rays and the Indians of staying in somewhat long-term contention, but the Cubs look like they're going to fall apart.
Yeah. I imagine the Cubs are probably imploding a little bit.
Yeah, and Reds team on the rise. They'll probably win that division, or they're likely candidates to win the NL Central this year. You got a team like Cardinals are always in it. So the Cubs will probably.
Are the Brewers still going to stick around? Are they still solid, or is there something that
they are?
They made the playoffs when Christian Yelich was a below average hitter. So I don't, and then they still have a very good 1-2 punch in the rotation with Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff. Josh Hader's still there.
They're also below 500 when they're the 8th seed.
So
year.
I at least think that they're at least in contention to win minimum 80 games, which in the NL Central is within 5 games winning the whole thing.
Right. Yeah. So they're not entirely out of the picture.
Yeah. The Cubs are in a rotation with like Kyle Hendricks, Zach Davies.
That's
Alec
former
Mills.
Spokane Indian Kyle Hendricks.
Yeah. So there's one thing that a lot of the Cubs starting pitching have in common, and that's they're probably 20th percentile or lower in average velocity.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be interesting.
When they still had Lester and Quintana, both of which are free agents now.
Yeah.
Like, they had one of the oldest rotations in baseball.
I wouldn't be surprised if like the Cubs sign a bunch of guys on 1-year deals just to maximize on 2020, because it's not like I don't think any of the guys in their farm are going to be impactful guys, and I don't think they're going to be trying to get some guys some tryouts. I think they're going to try and still win this year. They might win the division, but I don't think they're at all going to fight for like the Mets, the Padres, the Dodgers, and get to the World Series.
They're going to be an interesting team to keep an eye on when the trade deadline comes around, because I mean, the Kansas City Royals were in a very similar position back a few years ago when they had Hosmer and Moustakas and Alcides Escobar were all free agents going out into the year, and they were pondering the question: should we trade some of these guys or really go for wild card spot one last time? And they didn't trade anyone. They missed the playoffs, and now they've lost 100 games, 2 or 3 seasons in a row, and they're in the midst of a pretty long rebuild. So I think the Cubs are trying to not make the same mistakes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they'll be an interesting team to watch come July.
And I think one thing that I think is kind of interesting to see, especially in the National League, we kind of been saying Braves and Mets, NL East, they're top 2. One of them should make the wild card. Dodgers, Padres, top 2 in the NL West. One of them should make the wild card.
And then
we're back to the format. We're back to the format where there's 2 wild card teams. It's going to be hard for teams like the Diamondbacks, the Giants, the Rockies. Let's say Arenado, Story might get traded if they don't think they can make the wild card anymore. The Phillies are going to have trouble unless they make some moves. The NL Central, it looks like they're going to be a 1-team playoff division. So I wouldn't be shocked to see come mid-season if the 4 strongest NL teams just make a life of their own, that it's going to be a very wild trade heavy summer.
Yep.
Or maybe beginning of spring training when teams are like, I'm not optimistic of where the season's going. Trevor Story is now being shopped. Team might pick him up if they need a shortstop.
Arenado's been shopped for a while.
Not many teams can afford him. It's really a Dodgers-Yankees battle with him.
Yeah.
Now, guys, not to not to sound revolutionary or anything, but
Mhm.
can we maybe talk about the Padres?
Oh
Considering
yeah, no, they're great.
traded for half the world
So
and
yeah,
also signed oh gosh, what's his name? Ha-Seong Kim.
yep.
Yeah, Jake Cronenworth is now the super utility off the bench, which means he might be able to pitch now
Ooh.
because he actually can.
Yeah,
He was
yeah.
Michigan's closer. He can throw up to like 96 or 97. Strikes, no, but like it's 97. Like I've seen Millie Pagan do with worse.
I mean
Yeah.
that bullpen
Well,
itself. So Jake Cronenworth might
yeah.
be helpful.
That was the thing. It's like this is my concern is I love, as Padres fan, I love what they've done so far.
Mhm.
But I can't help but think that maybe some bullpen help would be nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
especially with
well-
Kirby Yates and Trevor Rosenthal in free agency right now.
Yeah, and I
I
mean,
hope they re-sign Rosenthal because I can tell he loved being here.
yeah, he seemed like he really enjoyed San Diego. But
And I think they're maybe 2 pieces away on the bullpen. And I don't think Mackenzie Gore would be a bullpen guy, but I wouldn't be surprised if Adrian Morejon moves back to the bullpen if he starts to struggle, and that's Mackenzie Gore's way to get in.
mm-hmm.
Morejon was actually
Long-term, Chris
good
Paddock
bullpen.
finally goes to the bullpen.
The bullpen last season for the Padres was just not great.
They just got overused at the very end.
Yeah, I mean,
Garrett Richards was a liability. They had to move him to the bullpen because he couldn't get through games. And Patino, they were trying to get him innings, put him in the bullpen. It was just really experimental. They knew they're making the playoffs, so they kind of were going willy-nilly.
Yeah, but like, is it Pagan, Stammen,
Austin
Hill?
Adams.
Pagan, Stammen, and Hill, I think all had ERAs over 4.
Yeah. And I don't know how.
Which I guess some of those were games where it was not close.
Yeah. And then in terms of like who do I trust, let's just say in the playoffs, let's say it's the 6th and you're trying to finish the game. I don't know how far you're going to get with Pomeranz. He's not going to have a 0 ERA anymore.
Yeah, right.
And then Austin Adams is reckless, but could be the best reliever on the team if he's ready.
And then you've got guys like Dan Altavia.
Yeah.
Love Dan Altavia.
Mm-hmm. And like I can tell, like they just acquired a guy, the last name Reeves, from the Yankees in exchange for Greg Allen, former SDSU Aztec. He's a reliever that they're looking at, like a fringe AAA, possibly make the major league squad if he does well in spring training. They need to find, I think, like the main guy. And because I think they don't need back end of the bullpen. I think they need like the go-to guy.
They need a go-to bullpen.
Yeah. Do you think the Padres make a strong push for Liam Hendricks?
They could.
Yeah,
I could picture him being like a 2-year deal. I don't think the Padres wouldn't pay for it.
Yeah, I mean, signing guys or to free agent deals is kind of tough for the Padres when you haven't extended guys like Tatis yet. You got Gore coming up in the future. You got all these prospects. So
yeah,
I mean, they shuffle guys like crazy every single year. So it'll be an interesting thing to watch going forward.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the Padres are a little cautious with free agent signings.
Yeah.
Hold on to money for Tatis, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think
at least not make any like 3 or 4 year deals like they did with Ha-Seong Kim.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they can do like kind of a Braves thing. They can go like expensive 1-year deals, and it's okay to if they flop a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. With all this being said, are they better than the Dodgers?
No,
not yet.
2022, maybe.
They can.
Clevenger's a big deal.
Yeah, Clevenger. I mean, being able to have Clevenger, Snell, and Darvish in the same rotation.
Yeah,
and you get a year older form of Tatis. You get Ha-Seong Kim fully adjusted to MLB.
Fully adjusted to the MLB.
You get a year older Trent Grisham. You get Mackenzie Gore officially a part of the rotation if he is the guy.
Yeah.
And who knows? He could be the number 1 pitcher.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I think this year's Dodgers-Padres games and Dodgers-Padres series are going to be a lot closer than they have in the past. I think it's going to be competitive, but I don't think the Padres are there yet. I don't think they're as good as the Dodgers yet.
I think they're minimally a 93, 94 win team in a full season. But that being said, I think the Dodgers could be a 102.
Yeah, I think the Dodgers are easily a 100 win team.
Yeah, the Dodgers Padres race this year could be the equivalent of a couple years ago when we had the Cardinals and the Cubs both winning 100
Or it
games.
could just be like an old
yeah.
Red Sox Yankees type of thing where like
or
who gets home field?
Yeah, early
Who wins the
2000s
division?
Red Sox Yankees.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it looks like it's going to be fun.
Yeah, or like an old Phillies Braves from like the Ryan Howard, Chase Utley, Chipper Jones, Andrew Jones days.
Yeah, if COVID allows you guys ready to pay $50 for tickets in the nosebleed seats.
Oh yeah,
I'm ready to pay $100 for a ticket in the nosebleeds.
Dude, I'd pay. I was just gonna say I'd pay $100 for a nosebleed seat.
Yeah,
oh, absolutely.
This year's Padres, I think is. I mean, it's gonna sound pretty obvious, but I think it's gonna be one of the most fun Padres teams to watch in recent memory.
Yeah, Snell is such a great personality for the game. Tatis, great personality for the game.
Oh my God, yeah.
Machado is a personality for the game.
Is a personality.
A personality.
Yeah. If you bring back Rosenthal, he's fun. Like he's Twitter active.
Yep.
Like it's gonna be a team that like if you're a new fan of the game, it's easy to attract.
Yeah. I mean, I could see them being, sort of everybody's second or third favorite team where, you've got your favorite team that you've loved forever. And then there's the Padres who are this.
He is that team your boyfriend worries about.
they're a very marketable team right now. I mean,
they're
talent.
He's the one where the meme where you turn your shoulder and you see a giant Padres logo.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, they're gonna be fun to watch.
Yeah. No, and then I mean, they're probably a top 3 team in the entire league. Yeah.
I think MLB Power Rankings put them number 3 behind the Dodgers and the Yankees,
which is a really strange concept.
I didn't realize they'd be all the way up there.
I also not even sure. Are the Yankees a top 2 team?
Ooh, they might not be. But that I think is a topic for another day. I think we're gonna take a quick break, drink a little bit of water, and then we're gonna come back and talk New Year's resolutions for our favorite teams. All right, we are back, and we're going to finish up the podcast today talking about New Year's resolutions. We're a week into 2021, even though it feels like it's been more than a week, if we're honest. So we're going to come up with some New Year's resolutions for our favorite teams, things that we'd like them to realize or try or do here in this coming year. Either of you guys want to start us off?
I'll go first.
All right.
So, New Year's resolutions for the 2021 Boston Red Sox. Pitching, and more pitching. 2020 was an abysmal year for the Boston Red Sox, to put it lightly. Obviously, the Mookie Betts trade to the Dodgers hurt. Watching Ron Renicky try to manage a team again was kind of ugly. And having Chris Sale, Eduardo Rodriguez, or Colin McHugh in our rotation in 2020 was pretty brutal. So our pitching staff was not good at all. The staff had a 5.58 ERA collectively, which was the third worst in baseball, and a 5.19 fielding and independent pitching, which was the worst in baseball. So yeah, I was playing this game with Farron earlier, Eric. So I'm gonna just bring this up with you. I'm gonna bring a bunch of names of Red Sox pitchers that played in 2020. Just a bunch of guys they was just hired off the streets, be like, hey, you want to play for the Red Sox? Right this way. Chris Meza. You ever heard of him?
Nope.
Robert Stock.
I know that guy, former Padre.
Dylan Covey.
USD alum.
Yeah. Domingo Tapia, Jeffrey Springs, Andrew Triggs, Josh Osich, Mike Kickham, Robinson Lair. This is who we were throwing out this year. And it was really tough to watch. So we definitely need to go out there and sign some pitching. I'm not asking for a Bauer or a James Paxton. We don't need anybody big off free agent market. Just someone to keep us afloat while the Yankees and the Rays dominate the division for the next 2 or so years. So 2 guys I've been linked to recently have been Corey Kluber, former Cy Young Award winner, Jake Odorizzi, All-Star in 2019. So you could really go either way with one of these guys. Kluber might be an interesting guy on a 1-year deal. He was injured for most of 2019 and 2020. So he could be a good guy to sign on a 1-year deal, reestablish his value. especially given the market with COVID this year. So he's definitely a guy that would be a staple in our rotation. And you could throw him in there with Eovaldi and Eduardo Rodriguez, who's expected back this year, who had COVID complications back in 2020. Or you could go Odorizzi on a longer term deal. So yeah, I mean, I would prefer one of those two options. If I had to choose right now, I would probably go Odorizzi, who is slightly younger. He's 30. Kluber is 34, I believe. So yeah, sum it all up. Pitching is what the Red Sox need. Pitching.
All right, Ryan, do you want to go next? Because
I'll
you're
go next.
also baseball.
Los Angeles Angels of Tustin. Learn from the boys down south. I'm going to tell them to try and learn from the Padres mold of how to build a franchise. So it's not, I think it's been proven that it's a mistake to give hundreds of millions of dollars to Albert Pujols, C.J. Wilson, Josh Hamilton, Justin Upton, maybe even Mike Trout, Anthony Rendon. The list goes on. And I think it's okay to have a big name contract. The Padres seem to know what they're doing with the Manny Machado contract. And I think even if it's an overpay, it doesn't mean much for them, because what matters more, and I think what the proven model for teams has been, is player development, bringing guys in yourself. You did it with Mike Trout, and taking them, it's essentially, make Joe Adell the next big guy. Build the guys up yourself, develop your own pitching, and have a program that can perform cheap. And then if you want a finishing touch, trade for it with the farm that you've created. I cannot name the number one prospect of the Angels, because Joe Adell. I think. Okay, if that's him, then it's unfortunate. Yeah, but I mean, Reed Detmers was the first round pick. If he fits the mold of what they want, he's going to be a pitcher they're going to build around. But each draft between now and, let's say, when Shohei Ohtani becomes a free agent after 3 seasons from now, are more and more important, because you're going to have to spend money to bring Shohei Ohtani back. And if you're not willing to do that, you just lost a starting pitcher and one of the best hitters on the team. So the clock is ticking for you to get some young guys that you can build around, because it's been proven for years that money does not solve everything.
It's not. Yeah. Angels sign Bauer?
No, I hope not. Give him to the Mets.
Yeah.
3 years, $120 million to the Mets. Let's call it now.
We'll see.
Everybody write it down.
If I'm uploading this on the 7th or the 8th, so if I'm right, I'm calling it next episode.
You heard it here first on the Kickball podcast.
Yeah, Kickball podcast.
Breaking news:
first.
There will be an episode 3.
That's a bold prediction.
Yeah.
All right. So to round us out, we're going to step away from baseball. I'm going to talk soccer for a little bit, and talk my New Year's resolution for my beloved Arsenal Football Club. It has been a rough few years for Arsenal. Since Arsene Wenger retired as manager, the club has not been the same. And there are some people who would argue that it was really on the downhill trajectory in Wenger's last few years as well. They are currently 11th place in the Premier League. That's the bottom half of the table.
Horrible.
There was conversation earlier. I didn't take it very seriously, but some other people did. There was conversation that they might get relegated this season, but they've turned it around recently. So my New Year's resolution for Arsenal Football Club is pick a direction and stick to it. Either try to win now or commit to the rebuild, because they've sort of been flip-flopping between the two. So as an example, there are these indications that they're trying to win now and be competitive. Mikel Arteta, who's their current manager, reportedly has a plan to win the Champions League in 3 seasons. And the 30-year-old winger Willian is reportedly part of that plan. They brought him in from Chelsea this summer, and he hasn't really made much of an impact at all. He really has not shown at all. It's January, so the transfer window is open, so they can sign new players, and they've been linked with a lot of these guys who would be basically immediate starters in the center of midfield to sort of take on this creative midfield role. So Hosam Owar, they pursued a lot in the summer and didn't get him. They've been linked to Julian Brandt here in January. So they sent one of their most promising young center backs, William Saliba. They sent him back out on loan this winter for the rest of the season. So he will be playing in France. And that's sort of an indication that they basically accepted that he wasn't going to get minutes playing for Arsenal. So they said, go spend some time playing in France, get some minutes. So that's very sort of anti-rebuild, not really committing to youth there. But at the same time that they've been making these moves and seeming like they're trying to really push to be contenders, there is plenty of young talent already at the club that would be great to focus on and build up to move into the future. So Bukayo Saka is arguably one of Arsenal's best players, not just best prospects, best players. And he's only 19 years old. Emil Smith-Rowe has started and played very well in Arsenal's last 3 games, all of which are wins. He's only 20. In terms of, and then there's a bunch of other young guys. Kieran Tierney and Gabriel are both 23 years old. They look like probably the future of Arsenal's defense. Reece Nelson and Eddie Nketiah are both sort of attacking options. They're both 21, as are, and also in the attack, there's Gabriel Martinelli, who's a very promising young prospect, and Fuller and Balogun is also a young prospect. They're both 19. So there's so much talent for Arsenal to build on and build into the future with, but it seems they also, have this desire and almost this need to stay in European competition, and that requires a certain level of performance. So I really want to see them pick a direction and either, keep their youngsters, but give them playing time somewhere else on loan and use their money to bring in more star players, or commit to their youth and, sign younger guys who aren't as proven, who are going to be better 2 to 3 years down the road as opposed to right now. So I want them to stop floating in the middle of those 2 options. I want them to pick an option and stick to it.
I think it was Mark Cuban that said that to be in the middle of like the rankings in any sport is the worst spot to be. And you mentioned that Arsenal needs to choose one direction, either whether it be go for it or rebuild. So it seems like they're in a pretty similar spot.
And
yeah,
it's gonna be hard for a team with like such, like, I don't know, like such a high like a light shone upon them.
Yeah, I mean,
they're commit to a rebuild and not get completely just torn apart.
I think that's their problem is, I mean, I say this as an Arsenal fan. Arsenal fans are very critical of the club. They always want the team to be doing better. They always want to be competing at a higher level. Any loss, it doesn't really matter against who. Even a loss against a better team is a bad result to a good deal of Arsenal fans. They expect everybody to play well every game, and the team hasn't been doing that for a while. So yeah, there's high expectations, which makes it really hard to rebuild.
And especially like I think from Mark Cuban's thing, it was like that's like it's hard to be a team that's mediocre because you don't get the draft guys and you don't get the reign of being a really good team. Soccer's different because you don't draft players. You're responsible for getting them yourselves.
Yeah, exactly. You have to bring them in.
So
yourself.
Mediocrity just looks like you're not doing your job.
Yeah, and bringing in, I mean, I don't want to talk about it too much, but bringing in young guys just got harder because of Brexit. There are new rules about, how old a player can be before they can sign for a Premier League club. Premier League clubs can only sign a certain number of European-born players between the ages of 18 and 21, and that's really like sort of the type of players you want to be targeting a lot of the
That
time.
affects the whole league, right?
Yeah, whole league.
Yeah.
So
So
that
like,
includes
every team's in
Arsenal.
the same problem.
Yeah, but so it's not getting any easier. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that wraps up our show for this week or this month.
This 2021 episode.
This 20 we are going to try and put out a third episode. We're all college students, so classes start at the end of January for us. So we're going to put up another episode sometime in the future. So
hopefully before the Super Bowl, maybe we can talk about football
hopefully
for
before
once in a
or
podcast.
around the Super Bowl, and we'll
we got some Super Bowl predictions to fill out.
We can do some really, really stupid props.
Exactly. We'll
fun, not money.
Put up a Super Bowl episode, talk football, talk prop bets. So we're gonna aim to do that. So thanks to those of you who watched all the way through. If you enjoyed it, obviously please like and subscribe. We appreciate any support. And
thank you to the almost 50 viewers of the last podcast episode.
Yeah, seriously.
We got 50 viewers. Wow.
Thank you so much for that.
Halfway to 100.
And hopefully we'll see you right before the Super Bowl. All right. See y'all soon.
Later.
Hey.